Hello and welcome to the Santee Church of Christ Bible Study Review, where we simply review very quickly what we went over in the last class on Sunday morning at the building. We are in the book of Dueteronomy and we are in chapter 28. Now chapter 28 is ending another small section of dissertation by Moses that's going to lead into his final comments and his final warnings. It is the chapter 28 is itself a chapter of blessings and curses. Last week we talked about the blessings, whereby if the people are simply God's people, they obey God, they trust God with all their hearts. We talked about the blessings that they would have. This part of the chapter, we covered the curses, and the curses section is much longer. That's one of the questions: is why is this section so much longer? And why is it that the people were going to be cursed or condemned by God if they didn't do the things that He was looking for them to do? That was the other question. And I really thought we were going to get through this pretty quick in class, but there's so much there, and there's so much that we ended up discussing that was all we talked about was the context of this, and the need for people to obey God through a pure heart, a trustworthy heart. So I'm going to go over the curses. I'm going to just paraphrase them very quickly. I'm not going to read the entire text. And this is so God is telling them through Moses, this is what's going to happen if and when you decide to start going down the path of idolatry. That's the big thing here for God, is idolatry. He says, let's see. I'm sorry. There's a lot. There's a lot of verses here. We're starting in verse 15, all the way through the entirety of the chapter, what's left anyway. If you do not heed the voice of your God, if you do not take heed to Him and do all the commandments, you'll be cursed in the city, you'll be cursed in the field, your basket and your kneading dough will be cursed, the fruit of your body will be cursed. You'll be cursed when you come in and when you go out. He'll send curses to you until you are destroyed. He shall make plagues cling to you. He shall strike you with the lung disease, with fever. Your heavens over the head shall become bronze, and the earth under you iron. In other words, it won't be productive. It'll be hard living. Jehovah shall make the rain to be dust, and shall come down on you from heaven, shall cause you to be stricken before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, which is an opposite commentary of the blessing. Most of these are to begin with, and then these curses start getting specific about other things. Your body shall be food to all the birds of the heavens. Jehovah shall strike you with the boil from Egypt. He'll strike you with madness and with blindness, with astonishment. You shall grope at noonday. You shall not prosper. You will be oppressed and plundered all your days. You'll be a slave. You'll betroth a wife, and you won't be with her. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes, but you won't eat it. Your sons and daughters will be given to another people as slaves. No power will be in your hand. The fruit of your ground and your labor will be eaten up by a nation which you do not know. You will be maddened because of that which you shall see of the sight of your eyes. He will strike you with an evil ulcer on the knees and then the legs, some sort of arthritis maybe, something like that. Jehovah will cause you and your king, you shall rise up over you to go to a nation which you have not known. You'll be captured. You shall be in astonishment. In other words, they're going to be in such a bad position, they will be a proverb and a byword among the peoples where Jehovah will lead them. You shall carry much seed out of the field, and you shall gather in little, because the locusts are going to devour it. There's a plague. You shall plant vineyards, but you shall not drink from it. You will have an olive tree, but you won't have olives or olive oil. You will father sons and daughters, and they shall not be with you. They'll go into captivity. The locusts will eat all your stuff. Paraphrasing. The alien in your midst will go above you, higher and higher, and you shall come down lower and lower. You shall lend, and he shall lend to you. I'm sorry. He shall lend to you, which is an opposite, a direct contrast to the blessing. And you will not lend to him. These curses will come to you and will pursue you and overtake you till you are destroyed. There shall be a sign and a wonder for you, because you did not serve Jehovah with joyfulness and gladness of the heart. You shall serve your enemies. You shall Jehovah will rise a nation among you from afar, and a nation fierce of face who will not regard. And he shall eat the fruit of your livestock and the fruit of your land until you are destroyed. So they're going to be taken over by a foreign nation. And then it gets into some really awful descriptions about when they are besieged and they actually commit cannibalism to stay alive. I'm not going to get into all of that. It's really descriptive. If you want to read it for yourself, I would advise, because it's just really blatantly descriptive, and it really is a prophecy, because these things actually do happen when you get to Second Chronicle. They get to Second Kings under King Jehoshaphat. We see that Ben-Hadad does that. He commits a siege against Samaria, and it becomes so terrible that cannibalism happens. Jehovah will make your plagues remarkable. He shall also bring on you the diseases of Egypt, of which you're afraid, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law. He'll cause them to come on you. You will be left few in number, and it shall be Jehovah, and it shall be as Jehovah rejoiced over you to do good and to multiply you, so Jehovah shall rejoice over you to destroy you. We didn't talk much about that, but it's not talking about God being like the sinister ha. It just means that with the same amount of fervor that he's bringing the blessings to them, he will exact judgment on them. And that judgment is something that they bring upon themselves. I only say that because people want to accuse God of things all the time, and they don't understand the reading. Jehovah shall scatter among you all people from one end of the earth to the other, and you shall serve other gods there. And when we read in the future readings of the scriptures, we find that they are already, that's when God sends them off, is when they're already doing that. Among these nations you shall find no ease. Jehovah shall give you a trembling heart and a failing eyes. Your life shall hang in doubt, and you shall fear day and night and have no assurance in your life. Kind of like what we see a lot of people having today, because they don't have God in their life. In the morning you will say, I wish it were evening, when in the evening you'll say, I wish it was the morning. In other words, you're going to just deplore your own life. You won't have the will to live. Jehovah will bring you into Egypt again, with ships, by the way, of which I said to you, and you shall never see it again. And you shall, Egypt, and you shall be sold for your enemies there, and there shall be no buyer, meaning no one's going to want you. You're not going to have much value. So again, these are the final warnings from God through Moses, to get the people to pay attention to him, because they're getting ready to go into the promised land, and they need to simply trust him with all their heart, mind, and soul. So a couple of things we talked about. What does he expect them to, what does God expect these people to do? And what does he say he will do? And why is this section longer than the blessings? Well, they need to listen to him. They need to pay attention to him. They need to heed what he says. In other words, take it to heart. And this has never changed. It's the same thing for the Christian. We need to pay attention to what God has done for us and put that in our heart and contemplate it and use it to have us grow closer to the Father. And so I read all these things that God was going to do. That section is a lot longer because it does include specific things that he's going to do when they become idolaters. And this is something that I brought up, that is the one sin. I mean, there were a lot of sins that they did. There were sins like when they were half-heartedly making sacrifices that God didn't like, but they were doing it. The evidence of that is that they were also worshiping idols. It's always this idolatry that God is not happy with. And of course, today we think there's no idols, and I have no idols in my house, and yet, how many things can we easily make more important than God? It could be our telephones, it could be our apps, it could be money, which is called idolatry in the New Testament, or covetousness, which is just simply, I want things all the time, and I always want more of things, and I want what my neighbor has. It's an unhealthy wanting of things and not keeping our focus on God and relying on things to make us happy, or husbands or wives or our children to make us happy, when we need to be looking to God for that happenstance well-being, understanding that we are God's children, regardless of our situations in our life, that because we are the children of God, we are so well off. And that's what we talked about in verse 47, is that they were to worship God with joyfulness and happiness. And that actually denotes a lack of complaining. If you're happy with your God, if a person is happy with their God and they realize their position because God has put them there and that he has made us his children, we're not going to complain. That word joyfulness means to brighten up, and that word gladness means to make good. And so that is what we do. We look to make good for God. That's what the Christian does, and that's what he's expecting them to do. He wanted them to focus on their relationship with him because he's the right way. All of these things, he's not bringing them on them just to punish them. These are natural outcomes from a person who leaves their life without a focus on God. Look at the world today. So many people are so lost because they've rejected God. They believe in they've made so many other things their own gods, okay? They've made science their God or whatever. And then they can't understand why they're depressed or why they don't feel fulfilled or why, there's just this big cloud over their head. So those are some of the things that we talked about. Next Sunday, or that's tomorrow, as of this recording, we're going to get into chapter 29, where again, these are the closing statements for this covenant with God's people, Israel, where Moses cites the fact that they are eyewitnesses to God and to all of his miracles and the things that he's done. And that is a big deal in a contract when you come to think about it, in any kind of agreement. So thank you. We welcome you to come Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock at the building in Santee. And we have a class on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And we are currently in 2 Peter and at the time of this recording. Thank you. We hope to see you there, and may God bless you.